So in 2017, some math nerd used this algorithm to find and rank Steam's best hidden gems. A quick glance at the top 100 revealed a few familiar names. Hidden in Plain Sight is an incredibly fun party game where you try to blend in with computer-controlled characters while you wait to assassinate your friends. When I saw Crosscode, I knew the list was legit, because Crosscode is one of the most polished, lovingly crafted indie games I've ever played. But I'm here to talk about the game that claimed the #1 spot, and didn't really surprise me in doing so. Wuppo. Wuppo is a 2D platformer with an open-ended world to explore. It's also kind of a twin-stick shooter, although the combat takes a backseat for most of the game. It's not quite a Metroidvania. The world is open and organically interconnected, and while you do find a few key items for progression, there's a distinct lack of movement upgrades. From a pure gameplay standpoint, it's difficult to put a finger on just what makes Wuppo so special. The magic of Wuppo stems not from its unique gameplay, but from its incredible world building and charm. I can never play Wuppo for very long without chuckling to myself, from the goofy antics of its characters to the many hysterical dialogue choices that you're given. And your character's subtle reactions and facial expressions are just the icing on the cake. In the game's opening minutes, Wuppo establishes its lighthearted tone by sending you, a fat, lazy Wum, to the Wum House's service desk to pick up some ice cream. You're introduced to Carlo, the exasperated manager who makes it clear that he's dealt with your shenanigans for the last time. After picking up the goods, you're given a stern warning not to make a mess. So you make a mess, and a furious Carlo immediately has you ejected from the building. Soon after, you team up with a bird who nicknames you Scallywag, and your journey to find a new home begins. The game is outright hilarious the entire way through, and it has that Paper Mario-esque attention to detail that makes character interactions so funny. Early on, you'll reach this massive sinkhole, so of course you'll try to fling yourself into it, only for your bird comrade to stop you and ask you what the hell you're doing. Continuing to jump off will cause him to grow more and more frustrated with your antics. So of course I found myself spending the next 3 or 4 minutes just repeatedly throwing myself into the abyss, just to see how many new lines of dialogue he'd give me. That's how I knew I was playing something special. This is kind of Wuppo in a nutshell. It takes something that might be otherwise mundane and makes it incredibly charming. Another highlight is when you try to move into the exclusive Popo City, and you're asked for your reason for entering. Business is clearly the best answer, and when he starts asking you for your permit, just tell him that you ate it. The officer will calmly explain that you need to eat the permit in front of him, and lets you off with a warning. I love it when games lean into their own absurdity like this, instead of taking themselves too seriously. But don't be fooled by the goofy characters and the MS Paint-esque art style. While the comedy and lightheartedness are certainly highlights, the world of Wuppo is surprisingly rich and full of lore to uncover. The main way that this unfolds is by finding film strips scattered about. They serve as the main collectible for completionists to find, but they're all completely optional. You can bring them to the Alice-Sweater, who will play them on his projector and make snarky comments about what he sees. As a quick side note, the game is from a Dutch studio, and so a lot of the names seem to come from Dutch words. For example, Alice-Sweater apparently means know-it-all. So be ready for me to butcher some names. You soon learn about the 4 main species that inhabit the land. You have Wums, who are physically weak but quite clever, the Blussers, who can spit out water, the Splank Hackers, who can build structures out of rock, and the Fnackers, who throw mud and are universally hated by the other races. They tried to conquer the world at some point, so the other races teamed up against them. Relatably, their solution was basically to just dump a whole bunch of mud on them and forget about them. These film strips are a fun twist on how games usually divulge their lore, typically through diary entries and item descriptions that need to be really interesting to keep me reading. Having someone go through them with me while interjecting with sassy quips made the world feel that much more authentic. Fnackers were known for their ability to throw up rocks? Disgusting! Exactly. No mercy for those ugly fellows. You're also rewarded based on how entertaining the projector owner finds the film strip, giving you an incentive to watch them all. As you progress further in the game, you'll find 2 other counterparts that can also watch film strips with you, and they'll give different commentary based on their own perspective. Each time I play Wuppo, I uncover something new about the world's history. Whether it's through watching the film strips with different people, or by listening to old war veteran Bert Smolder and his stories about how he drove away those dirty Fnackers with his genius inventions. The world is littered with memorable characters that will just keep talking to you. It's honestly surprising how much some of them have to say. Wuppo does so much, with a surprisingly small amount of space. It's one of the liveliest and most pleasant video game worlds that I've seen. It's large enough to offer a variety of bustling locales, but it's all still very manageable and introduced in digestible chunks. I'm also a sucker for a world that's interconnected without feeling too forced. I love the clever ways that the game bridges these areas, like these gum bubbles that send you flying upward, or the Wumhouse's food transportation system, or the gap beneath the Wumhouse elevator that connects to the tunnels below. And I haven't even mentioned the subway that leads to my favorite part of the game, the massive underground Popo City. Your search for a new home takes you to the polar opposite of the lethargic Wumhouse that you started off in. Popo City is full of industrious Wums that all work hard to be productive members of society. Only, instead of working for Smirt, the standard currency of the world, they all work to collectively earn credit. Once the Popos earn enough, new improvements and additions are made to the city. Damn commies. This segment of the game leaves you on your own to explore this expansive underground city, with two open-ended objectives. Help the city earn enough credit to drill through a tunnel at the city's edge, and solve the mystery behind a strange vermin infestation. I love this part of the game because it showcases the best of everything Wuppo has to offer. It's like a buffet of quirky NPCs, quests, and minigames to discover, and almost all of it is optional. You can work as a newspaper delivery boy, launching papers at Wums bustling by and earning tips for doing trick shots. Or you can participate in town debates where you discuss what to do about such important issues as whether the local food vendor should be allowed to sell painted smackmuffles. Honestly guys, this one was a no-brainer. If you're not with the free market for smackmuffles, then you can get out of my face. You can go fishing, stay at a hotel, break a man out of prison, bribe the security guards, all the usual things you might do in a city. As you work to build the city's credit, you can do all, or some, or even none of these activities. The city's credit level will just continue to rise even if you sit around and wait. None of these activities are particularly deep or fleshed out, but together they paint a portrait of one of the liveliest and most memorable video game towns I've seen. This is a recurring theme in Wuppo. There's just so much attention to detail for things that you probably won't even notice on a first playthrough. There's a totally optional amusement park, complete with tickets and rides. You got the Mega Crank, the Drop Top, and the Jolly Boing, all your amusement park staples. There's even a fortune teller that blatantly rips you off, continually stringing you along and asking you for more tickets. And if that's not enough, you can even pay him to spend time in his dark chamber. Now if you change your hat one too many times next to the stoplight, he'll have absolutely none of it and assault you with a deadly game of red light, green light. A duel that would go on to inspire one of the highest grossing Netflix series to date. None of this has any reason to exist, other than to make the world of Wuppo feel more authentic and alive. With its boundless charm and wit, Wuppo has continued to lure me back again and again. The dialogue and humor are spot on, but it's also an unexpectedly rich world full of interesting history to uncover. It's one of those games that I enjoyed more on a second or third playthrough, at which point the game's lore just sorta clicked for me. There were also a few tricky puzzles in the early and late game that caught me off guard my first time through, but once I had a clearer picture of how to reach the end goal, I could better relax and savor the journey. Wuppo won't win any awards for its groundbreaking mechanics or breathtaking visuals, but that's okay. Wuppo is a game that's best enjoyed with an eye for detail and an appreciation for the little things. And beneath Wuppo's wacky and hilarious exterior is a wholesome journey about tolerance, acceptance, and finding one's place in the world. Discovering Wuppo has been an absolute and unexpected delight, and I have no doubt in the slightest that it's earned its statistically derived spot as Steam's most underrated gem.